We go. I do believe we are live. So I'll say indeed and greetings unto you, beloved and holy friends. What a dear pleasure it is to have what a dear pleasure it is to have you here again in this moment. Another opportunity for us to consider how we want to consciously evolve. Today's centering thought has been about how we find ourselves polarized. We did acknowledge that polarization, especially as it's used in our day-to-day terms, can very much be related to politics. And I would be lying if I said there wasn't some part of me that wanted to talk about polarization today because of the politics that we are experiencing as well. Yesterday we talked about focus, and what our focus is pointed towards, we kind of go there as well. Hey, eyes. And in that way, there is this responsibility in us to be vigilant. That if we're going to be as a focus on the internet, there's going to be a broad spectrum of experience, right? A great deal of ways to be polarized. Hey, Joe is here too. Love you. And if there is so many great deals of ways to be polarized, then it is up to us to not be, right? Especially, and this is what I'm thinking about, to not be polarized in a way where you remove yourself completely, right? I'm thinking about the extreme of becoming a hermit, right? So maybe there can be someone in the world, and you might know such a someone, or you might be able to imagine such a someone. And in this imagining of such a someone, they feel very polarized away from modern society. The modern world might feel impure, might feel faulty, might feel exploitative, might feel evil to them. And them feeling anti-polarized towards that world might want to remove themselves from it. Hey, Kristen. And that removal doesn't have to be in the form of self-harm, but it can be in the form of self-isolation, where that person polarizes to the point where they find themselves completely on the other side, right? Alone. And like that is another example to make about what kind of polarization that I'm really talking about today. Is that you might feel exhausted. I'm one of those people that might feel exhausted by a lot of other energies, a lot of other people in my environment, a lot of other consciousnesses, egos to contend with. And in that way, I can put myself in an environment like that, where that is the energy that is required, the energy that is created, and then I can remove myself from that environment as well. And I can go back to the environment of self, if we're going to think about it in that way, right? And in that way, I allow both sides of the polarity. There is the polarity of the self, and then there is the polarity of the everyone else. And there is a certain level of self-respect that needs to be had on this one side of the self. And as you spend time in the outside world, there is a certain level of respect you want from the outside world as well, right? And then these two things start influencing one another and feeding into each other. And before you know it, you're polarized. You're polarized because there is different feedback systems in this world than we usually had. Usually, there was a space within which we lived, and then there were other people in that space alongside us. And those people were potentially family members or fellow tribe members. So there was this incentive to ensure the collective survival, because other tribe members could help support, bolster, protect the tribe. And then fast forward a few thousand years, before we knew it, our biology hasn't changed much, but our world has. exponentially so. And the same energies that polarized us in the past, the same things that can make us feel things, are still there, but the levers has now been untapped. Guess what number I'm thinking of? Mojo, please. Mojo. Like, I love how the universe does bring us experiences like that, because that to me is a pretty polarizing experience. Right? One, I don't remember the last time I had a conversation with like 12 to 14 year olds, which I think is a good thing. Net good thing. But the point I'm trying to make is the perspective of like, I don't even know what I would want to talk about. And clearly, talking about conscious evolution and the way that polarization shows up in our lives is not exactly the most engaging conversation for a 14-year-old, 12 to 14-year-old to have. So to watch them want to be here, right? Like still be attracted to the message, but at the same time be so bored that they're trying to like play guessing games. This is the value that I see in this community eventually, right? That it is going to be like a meta space where you will literally be able to come and join me in a circle if you wanted to, right? And then that circle will extend to a certain number that I can decide, right? I can allow only X amount. I can allow like all of the original members into my immediate circle, right? And in that way, in this metaverse, I can see each of you in that immediate circle as well. And I can direct my attention towards the space in that way. And then every single time there is a that I want immediately around me, it basically creates a duplicate universe of myself where it can then again saturate as audience members. So if there's only 10 people in stream, then there's only one circle. If there's 20 people in stream, now suddenly there's two circles and they stack on top of each other, right? And I'll still be in that conversation, sitting there talking to the space, and you can talk back to me, but the access that I'll have to the voices might be weirdly distributed, and eventually it could technically be disconnected from me, as in we can create these multiple instances of myself with you sitting in the space with me. And to me, the idea behind that is that kind of let's play a guessing game thing, right? Because instead then of them playing a guessing game with us all being a part of the conversation, they can just sit next to each other in this circle and play a guessing game between the two of them. And if they wanted to go into a different circle where I'm not there having a conversation, they could choose to do that too, right? Make new friends if they wanted to. So yeah, in time, yes, this has my focus, but I have also a great deal of patience, and I will not let myself get polarized away from doing these things eventually. Yes, the internet can be bad for you, but I'm going to make sure that I make something where the internet is good for you, where you consciously evolve every single time you use it. Literally, you cannot use this piece of the internet without becoming a better person. Imagine that. Keep imagining it. I think they probably just wanted human interaction. It's true, eyes. It's true. And I'm not against that. Quite the contrary. I'm like, yes, humaning interactions. Right. It's good. It's good for you. Emily G. Hey, friend. We're talking about getting polarized today. I'm having a fun conversation. It's nice. All these forms of information vying influence and shapes our beingness. Vying to influence and shape our beingness, pushing us towards the vision, whether for profit or power in numbers. I think it is both, right? It is profit and it is power in numbers, but at the same time, it's almost this demoralization, right? It's like a beating you down. with like thing after thing after thing. Because as long as there's like thing after thing in like the public eye, the stuff the media is reporting on, then there's like a lot of room for the unknown. So much, wow, so much other stuff can happen when you're looking at the stuff that's happening. And in that way, yeah, we are literally at the cusp of a great deal of change. Like, again, Microsoft released a freaking quantum chip yesterday. Probably only has like 10,000 views on that video still. Maybe a bit more. But it's a big deal, right? Google recently, like 2 months ago, they came out of their Willow chip and they were bragging. They were like, yo, our Willow chip has like 105 qubits on it. And people were like, wow, wow. And then Microsoft is like, yo, 2 months later, actually, now ours can go up to 1 million. We can do 1,000,000 qubits. Yeah, we can. Why not? And we will do more. Because we've redesigned the way in which the qubits work. We're literally using particles, right? Subatomic particles as processor units. What? Yes. Yep. Human beings are using subatomic particles that are elusive. They're hard to find. These Marojana particles. And not only are we finding them, but we're controlling them in a latent space. And they exist in a superposition. Right? So instead of a computer having to think, maybe this pattern, okay, no, maybe this pattern. All of those patterns exist simultaneously. Let's ask GPT to give us like some proper bars to think about. Welcome to the quantum era. We're in the quantum era. Quantum computing. And we were talking about this recently as well. That's the best part, Kristen, is that when this stuff happens, it makes me feel less crazy. Because we've been talking about this stuff. We've been talking about how this is the era of quantum, of AI, of blockchain, of synth bio, right? Synthetic biology. If there's something I'm missing, gene editing, but that's also synth bio. And like all of this stuff is switching on at the same time. Like we keep just plugging nodes into the machine that makes it faster and faster. We're talking about the new Microsoft quantum computers. The one with is it Marojana? It's so close to marijuana, it messes with my brain, unfortunately. Tell us about this particle and tell us about this technical feat that Microsoft claims that they have managed, right? Give it to us in layman's terms. I'm super fascinated, but I know it's a lot to understand. I enjoy your conversations. Oh, Emily, it's so nice. Our numbers, our civic duty is to stay aware, to keep evolving, to question everything, to see with curiosity, unclouded by judgment. So beautifully said, Joe. Joe, I love that. I would say what you described is more than just a civic duty, perhaps our duty of existence. Like, I believe, to add to both of yours, that that's what we're here for. That if we see in the world, yes, things are not okay right now, then you showing up lovingly is what helps it be okay. At least more so. I don't know what this whole chip situation is. I'm so lost. I'm scared. It's good to be a little bit scared, Ice. With this stuff, it's kind of one of those equally exciting, equally terrifying kind of things. I'm gonna give you the deets now. Yeah. Majorana fermions, a particle being researched in quantum computing. Microsoft is studying Majorana fermions as a part of their efforts in topological quantum computing, where these particles could be crucial for stable qubits. So imagine if you had a super special Lego block that's nearly indestructible. And even if you bump into it a little, it just holds together. That's kind of what Microsoft is aiming for with its new quantum chip, Marijana 1. What is in the name? First off, Don't let the sound fool you. It's not about marijuana. Even though Majorana might make you think of a hazy day. Instead, the chip is named after Italian physicist Ettore Majorana. The idea is that the Majorana particle is unique because it's its own antiparticle. In everyday terms, it's like having a two-in-one tool that doesn't need a separate backup. It essentially covers its own tracks. The quantum challenge. Quantum computers use qubits instead of ones and zeros in classical computers. But here's the hitch. Qubits are extremely delicate, easily disturbed by even tiny amounts of environmental noise or heat. That's why they cool them down to like literally 0 Kelvin. That has to be like, and 0 Kelvin is like a minus 273 Celsius. It's like very cold. Like freeze your fingers off if you put your hand in an environment like that cold, right? Super cold. So they cool it down to try and keep that shit stable. And now we're building tech that makes us not have to in the same ways anymore. But let's go back to it. Stability. Design. Shape of the system. Okay, there we go. Environmental noise. Think of trying to balance a house of cards in a windstorm. No, not exactly, but yes. Okay, when a qubit gets disturbed, it loses its quantum magic, leading to errors. Yeah, it's supposed to be in the superposition, right? So if it gets disturbed, it could find itself being in one position, right? Being polarized. Ooh, wow! Suddenly that connection just got made. It ends up being polarized, and in it being polarized, it's wrong. And then it puts out wrong data into the computer, which is not what we want. So we keep it cold, so it stays oscillating in the frequency it's supposed to. All right. When the qubit gets disturbed, leading to errors. Enter topological qubits, right? So that's this new thing. We're building topological qubits now. Microsoft's breakthrough is all about making qubits that are naturally more stable. They're doing this by creating topological qubits, which store information not in a tiny, vulnerable spot, but in a kind of overall pattern or shape of the system. So the way that I understand this is that topology can be almost like a field on a plane, right? Hey Google, show me a topological plane. Yeah, yeah. Which one is going to be a good one to show you, though? This one can be good, right? So that's a topological plane. There's an x and there's a y-axis, and there's a z-axis, and then there's this plane, right, that almost creates like a well. That's the way that I understand it. I don't know if I'm correct in understanding it this way. And then in that well, we catch one of these little particles, these Majorana particles, and then it exists in superposition in that little freaking topological well that we created. So we're not actually touching it. So we don't have to keep it as cold because we're not actually touching it. We're freaking insanity. Qubits are delicate. The challenge. Ones and zeros. Enter topological qubits. Yeah, the breakthrough making qubits naturally more stable. They're doing this by creating topological qubits, which store information in a tiny, vulnerable spot, but it's a kind of overall pattern or shape of the system, not in a tiny, vulnerable spot or an overall pattern or shape of the system. This approach is inspired by topology, a branch of mathematics that studies properties that remain unchanged even when you twist or stretch an object. Because these qubits rely on an overall design, they are much less likely to lose information due to small disturbances. The role of the Majorana particle and topoconductors. Topoconductors, yes. We've heard about semiconductors. Now get ready for the topoconductors. Yes, I love that my brain is acquiring new words. To build these robust qubits, Microsoft is harnessing exotic particles known as Majorana particles. These particles pop up in a special kind of material called a topoconductor, a brand new, carefully engineered substance crafted atom by atom that Microsoft developed. When the material is cooled to it still needs to be cooled to absolute zero. I mean, checks out. It's gonna be cooler if we can do quantum computing at ambient temperatures. But still, fine, fine. I'm still impressed. Fine, you can have absolute zero. And exposed to the right magnetic fields, it involves a novel state of matter, not a liquid, a solid, or a gas, but something entirely new, where the Majorana particles can emerge and be controlled. They're like running some sort of plasma or something. It's probably plasma. It's probably something. Why it's a big deal? Microsoft Majorana one chip currently houses 8. Oh, only 8 of these topological qubits. The exciting part, they claim that this approach, with a clear roadmap, can eventually pack up to 1,000,000 qubits onto a single chip, one small enough to fit in the palm of your hand. Such a quantum computer could tackle problems that even today's fastest supercomputers would take centuries to solve, like designing new drugs, creating self-healing materials, or cracking complex chemical puzzles. Yes. Yes, my material science. My super suit is getting closer. I can feel it. I can feel my super suit getting closer. It's in the future here somewhere. In short, they're new particles, they're stable qubits. It makes a literal new material. They build the chips atom by atom. And it's a quantum leap. We're in the quantum era, friends. Both Google and Microsoft are rushing, doing everything in their power to be first in building quantum computers. Quantum computers? Oh, hell yeah. It's happening. Oh, hell no. And so, adamantium chips. Yes, right? Like this is the kind of thing. So, I said this to my parents because I showed them this yesterday as well. I was like losing my mind. I was like, I love it. Look at this. And you must see. And it was going down this rabbit hole of like, if this is real, if we're actually doing this, it's almost like the first step in what we think the super sci-fi future is. Right? When we look at those like Star Trek universes that have fabricators and stuff, like super intelligent AIs, excuse me, spaceships and stuff. It probably starts with quantum computing, especially if you look at all of the other things that's coming online simultaneously. It starts with all of those things, and then we get all of the rest. And all you have to do is not get polarized away from being excited about the future. To not get shaken out. You have a lot more life ahead of you. That's exciting. Yeah. Yeah, we're living in the future. We're literally living in the future. I mean, look at this. This is a little piece of metal that I have now put some cannabis in and encapsulated it. And then I have a piece of technology that have within it battery chemistry, that have within it electrons stored that run themselves through a little electromagnet that switches on and off 10,000 times in a second, that moves little metal molecules side by side until they get hot. And then I can inhale vapors that will change the way I feel. And I'm doing this while talking to friends that literally live on the other side of the world, using internet that is being transported to you by literal space satellites. What other kind of satellites are there? Don't start with me. Don't. Satellites in space transporting this feed all the way to you right now. And now we're plugging quantum computers into that network as well. Huzzah! Why not? Why not more? We're gonna get enslaved or eradicated by computers. What makes you think you are not in a computer right now, Eyes? What gave you that idea? What gave you that idea? What made you believe that you were a real person? When did you start believing that? I'm sorry, this might be a little bit too existential. But realistically, hey, Dreamtooth, realistically, if you look at our current trajectory, and now alongside this whole quantum computing chips thing as well, it is inevitable that we build a good enough simulator to be able to simulate life. And as soon as we do that, we can assume that that life will continue to evolve as long as we keep the computer on. And then we can assume that that life, as it continues to evolve, will develop the intelligence that we have. And in that world, with enough time, with enough resources, with enough compute, they will build computers that can compute computers in the same way that this could be computed as well. And if you have to go down that extreme, it is more likely that you are in one of those rendered realities than you are in the very first one that wasn't. And I share this thought experiment a bunch, and it is interesting to think about because it doesn't really change anything, whether it's true or not. The only thing it does change in my mind is the significance I bring to this life. That if this is a computer simulation, then I am the thing being simulated. I am literally the program. Without me as the program, there is no product, right? Thinking about it from the perspective of a computer person. When I open a program, there is usually some sort of payoff. There's something that I want to get done. There's some task to be solved. There's something to be gained in me using the software, right? And if that's the case for us, then what's to be gained by that which is rendering us? And that which is rendering us could just be called your higher self, right? Your consciousness, this thing that is always, as this thing that you are now changes, always too. The player controlling me needs to learn how to grind better resources. The player controlling you got born in the age of blockchain. So you're pretty lucky in that way, Eyes, at the very least. I hear you, Eyes. Love is true. Sometimes it's safer as an NPC. Someone thought they're an NPC. I'm an NPC. Shooting for the boob or the moon. I guess it depends on where you are. Alright? We love our alien robot quantum overlords, especially if they're listening. Especially if they're listening. I love them extra when they're listening. And then as soon as they leave, I'll think about if it's possible to love them still. Envelopes are not too expensive, but are they your consciousness? I guess, in a way, they're a slice of your consciousness. If you put parts of yourself, your words, a picture, a four-leaf clover in that envelope, right? So, and again, as they are in that envelope, they're not conscious, right? Maybe that envelope falls out of the truck that's supposed to transport it to the person that deserves it, and it waves in the wind out into the forest and falls on a nice soft ground covered in mulch, and that mulch slowly consumes that envelope. back into the world. Right now, in that case scenario, the consciousness that you put in that envelope ceases to exist. Or not ceases to exist, but maybe ceases to have the same potential impact. Right? However, if that envelope did reach the person that you sent it to, the consciousness that is you, that is created in that, is created in them by reading your words. Right? In that way, you could have passed. You could have been the one that got taken by the mulch in the forest. I'm so sorry, that's morbid. And then your letter can be read. And then suddenly that person remembers and thinks about you and, thinks lovingly. So yeah, good question. Good question indeed. Living in the future. Literally living in the future. I haven't touched an envelope in a long time. I haven't sent a letter in decades. Whoa, I zoned out for a second. My bad. I was buffering. Sometimes we have to. Sometimes we find ourselves in those trains of thought where we're like, huh. I believe those moments do bring with them conscious evolution. You're still running simulations in your brain. Connections are being made, even if it feels like you're just buffering. Dude, I get such bad lag sometimes. Taking a big breath with you. I haven't touched a thought in a long time. Hashtag eternal buffer. When I'm taken by the mulch in the forest, boss lady becomes moss lady. I can dig it. That's hilarious. Becoming moss lady. Weirdly enough, there is synchronicities in my brain. I don't know if I want to share them. There's an indie YouTube creator that's called AZFK. It's not very savory. It's downright disturbing, in fact. But he wants to create a TV show that's called Outsider Trading. And you can see it's rough, but you can also see that there's a lot of passion and mindfulness behind the idea and consideration for our universe. Right? And in that way, it is pretty cool to see it. And there is a swamp lady. There's a swamp lady in that show. And you talking about Moss Lady, for some reason, gave me that synchronicity. Checks out. AZFK, you said. Yeah. Like, this is going to be one of those things that's very concerning, right? I don't know if people are going to look back at this stream and be like, Melt, why do you know about this creator? Ask YouTube. Blame YouTube. It's not my fault. And it's not my fault I have some morbid curiosity. Again, it's the perspective thing, right? Allowing yourself to have more perspective means that you end up with more perspective. It's kind of cool in that way. You get to create. And it's interesting to see what other people choose to create, even if it might not be what you would. But still, they're showing up too. I think maybe that's what I can take into consideration. I say, I am very hard on myself. Whew, very high strung, extremely high standards for what I think I ought to be. and what my work is supposed to look like. And then I see other people making work that if I had to make something like that, I would consider it bad. And yet I can appreciate this thing as something that is good. And then it takes me aback, and I'm like, huh. I don't question people's choices anymore unless they affect me, cause my ego and whatnot. It's a wise place to exist within. Nice. Being an ego is quite a trip. To exist. Right? There's a little doggo. Right there. And this duder exists alongside me too. And he's very aware of his existence, and he's very aware of mine. And if he, within his existence, for instance, urinated on the floor, my existence can notice that there is a change in demeanor. Where suddenly he looks like he's guilty of something. And suddenly he looks like he's averse to certain places. Like he doesn't want to look in certain directions. And if there's enough awareness in me to notice that stuff in him, there's enough awareness in him to notice that stuff in me too. We're just like giving him like some eyes. He'll be like, okay, I need to rethink my strategy. Need to stop being so naughty. I don't know if he's through his destroying things phase just yet. My pupper tells on himself too, right? Like, and in that way, it shows me some consciousness, Zhao, right? Because they're conscious. Because if they were just like animals or whatever, they would pee and poop wherever, and it would just like not matter or whatever. But because they're like, there's like some soul in there, there's some knowing, there's some spirit. They know they shouldn't have done that, right? And then they're almost like waiting. They're like just like waiting for you to figure it out. So there's this like whole narrative, this whole story they probably tell themselves in their head of like, oh no, oh I wonder if he's gonna figure it out. I hope he doesn't figure it out. What's he gonna do it when he figures it out? Oh no. What I do with him when I figure it out is I bring him all the way close to the urine and then I hold on to him. I don't beat him. I just hold on to him, right? And he's trying to get away from it, and I'm making it aware that we're now both gonna like suffer the proximity. We're gonna be like, look at this, and then I do sometimes ask questions. I'm like, look at this. Can you believe this? Where did this come from? All right, and the backtracking. That's usually how you also know. Like, what happened here? Can you believe that this happened here? I can't believe this. Oh, no, I'm sorry. And it's happened less and less. I don't have to clean something very recently. He really has gotten big. Nikki is very much still in the destructive terror phase. I slept very little last night because of my beloved bad head. Jeeps. I don't know if it's going to be a fractal of giving them a space of their own with things to play with. My doggos would be outside so quickly if they wake me up at night. What is ethology? Ethology. Oh, I recently started studying ethology because of my career path, and it is very interesting. Hey, ethology. Oh, is a branch of zoology that studies the behavior of non-human animals. Hmm. To see how animals behave. We were talking about doggos and their feelings of guilt when they pee on things. So that would be ethological studies, I believe. The study of animal behavior. I'm learning about dogs and cats specifically. There you go. You see. Yeah. There's a lot to learn in the contrast between dogs and cats. I agree. They are such radically different creatures with such radically different behaviors. Like a cat, for example, in the same way, wouldn't really care that much. If a cat pooped on the floor, it wouldn't tell on itself. Like, there's no way that you find out a cat pooped on your floor by looking at their behavior. They're like, think I care? Think I care at all, bro? No. Ooh, amazing. Eyes, that's so cool. It really is. Kristen, goodness, puppies are sweet, but goddamn, they are hard work. On the bright side, it gets easier. Sending you blessings with Nick. Sending him love. Sending Dixie strength as well, because she's probably also kept up by his shenanigans. I know Pippi is. It's kind of hilarious. I really did enjoy this stream with you, friends. I think it's time for us to come to a close. I'll show you the flower one more time and read you the poem. I think it was a good one as it relates to focus, since we're talking about being polarized. It is good for us to keep in mind the internet calls for a lot of our focus. Wait, are we saying goodbye? I mean, not completely. I am sharing some flower and poem, but then I am gonna read the goodbye message. I love that, eyes. I would have probably steered towards science and higher education if I would have been aware of the career possibilities and opportunities. It's true. It's true. My mind, just because I had this focus very recently, was about a dad who took both of his sons always to like parks, and they would like study animals and like reservation of these animals and like their habitats. And then they like went to study environmental sciences and like animal upkeep or something like that. And their dad was like super proud of them for doing that and getting a government job that pertains to that, like the taking care of the parks. And then that same dad voted. And then after the new elected fired basically both of his sons because they were in positions that did unfortunately come under scrutiny. Uh, he was like, "Hmm." So yeah, I think it is one of those things where the universe unfolds so strangely. None of us know anything. My headphones aren't working right now, so can you chat instead? By the way, which game do you stream the most? I don't stream games. Zero. Gamies. And no, I don't really have access to a keyboard because I'm multi-streaming. I'm so sorry. My goodbye message. I'm happy that we have this as a possibility right now. Bless, I missed you well. We were here buzzing. I'm happy you're back. Love is true. Miss you too. Happy to be back. Happy tonight. Happy to have you. Kristen, it's always a pleasure having you in these moments. Okay. The shape of focus. The world is a restless time, pulling at the edges of your mind. 1,000 voices, 1,000 hands, each one whispering, look here, look here. A message, a task, a half-formed worry, a future unraveling in the quiet corners of your thoughts. Every moment, something tugs at your sleeve, begging for a sliver of your sight. But where you look, you go. Where you go, you become. And if you let your focus splinter, if you chase every flicker in the distance, you may lose the one place where life is actually happening. Right here. Not all things deserve your full gaze. Some burdens starve when left unfed. Some knots untangle when your hands let go. And some moments, this moment, are waiting to be lived. Not just watched from a mind already racing ahead. So breathe. Gather your light. Let the world pull. Let it call. You will tend to what needs tending, but not all at once. Focus is not just a tool for solving, not just a blade to carve away the chaos. It is a home to return to, a fire to keep warm by, a choice again and again to be fully here. MeltMore, that's me. I am MeltMore. For me, the melt. Love is true. I thank you for joining me, for sharing a moment of ye time. I appreciate you so much. I can read you a message of goodbye, lovingly written by a Christian, brought to us in this moment by all of our collective minds, experiencing the mostest harmonious day together. I wholeheartedly love you all, so collectively, integrally, cohesively, synergistically, concordantly, undividedly, and unanimously melt, and all of you. Oh, so undefyingly, bridge buildingly, reconcilingly, interconnected, harmonious, inclusive, solidarity driven friends who embrace balance over polarization to nurture peace and equilibrium. That felt good. It felt so good. Love is true. Thank you, Kristen, for blessing us with that goodbye message. Eyes saying, everyone take care. I always go MIA for a couple of days after joining, so I hope your weekend is great if I don't see you for a while. It was nice having you here today. We'll see you again when we do, dear friend. May you have a good time as well. Until we show up again for one another, I'll potentially see you tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody. Cheers.